Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode, we're doing Who Is Better. For this Who Is Better, it's a special Halloween-themed episode. We're going to deviate from judging wrestlers against each other, and we're going to judge what I consider the three biggest horror villains of all time. I guess you could call them slasher villains because all of these guys come from slasher movies, and in case you couldn't guess from the thumbnail, our three contestants stepping up: Freddy Krueger from the Nightmare on Elm Street series, Jason Voorhees from the Friday the 13th series, and Michael Myers from the Halloween series. Being a kid that grew up in the 80s, these were the three faces you mostly seen when you would go to your local video store and walk down the horror aisle. These were the guys that everybody would dress up for on Halloween. These are the guys that still everybody dresses up for on Halloween. And if you're new to my channel and you haven't seen any of these before, normally what we do is we take 8 separate categories. In each category, you're rated on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. At the end, we tally up the score to see who has the overall best score. There is a chance for 5 bonus points. So with that being said, the categories are going to be different than the wrestling because obviously they're not wrestlers. But I think I came up with 8 categories that'll help us determine who the best of the 3 is. I'm going to start off with our first category, probably honestly the least important of them as far as talking about the character itself, and that's the supporting cast. Starting off with Freddy. For Freddy, I'm going to give him a 4. I feel like of the 3, his supporting cast is the least important to his story. I think Nancy is the one with the biggest over multiple movie arc, but it doesn't feel like any of his cast really continues on and has any special anti-Freddy superstar in there. It kind of feels like all the cast through all the movies are pretty much interchangeable. Still, I would say his supporting cast is good just because they help to carry these movies, especially with the fact that you have a young Johnny Depp in the original. So yeah, he gets a 4 here. Next up, Jason Voorhees. Jason's also gonna get a 4. Jason has a lot of the same issues that Freddy has, where he doesn't have like one defined protagonist through the whole series. He has a couple, Tommy Jarvis being the one that sticks out the best for me. But his cast, much like Freddy's, it feels like they're interchangeable from movie to movie. You can bring in a whole new set of characters. And like I said with Freddy, Jason's cast are pretty good as well. Much like Freddy had a young Johnny Depp, Jason had a young Corey Feldman in one of the movies. So yeah, I think his cast is pretty good too. Last but not least, Michael Myers. For him, I'm giving his supporting cast a 5. And that's based off of Dr. Loomis and Laurie, his sister in the movies. Jamie Lee Curtis may be the most iconic character in a horror movie series that isn't the monster or isn't the killer. And Dr. Loomis, Donald Pleasance, was so good at this role, such an iconic character. These two carry it through all of the Halloween movies that they're in. There are some that they're not in, and there is Season of the Witch, which even Michael isn't in. But yeah, I think his cast, out of the 3, I would say he has the best cast. That's why he gets the highest score. Now our next category, most terrifying. Who's most likely to scare you, either through their movies, through their pure appearance, whatever it may be. For Freddy Krueger, Freddy's getting a 3. The reason Freddy gets a 3 is as the movies went on, and it's a common trope with all 3 of these guys, but I think Freddy suffered the most from this. The more the movies went on, the more comedic he became, the more slapstick it was. It turned from him being a feared killer to him being one of the 3 Stooges, basically. So for that, I'm giving him a 3 because by the end of his series, by the end of his run, he was just comedy, to be honest. For Jason Voorhees, Jason, I'm giving a 4. Jason is probably the slowest, the most prodding, the one that you would think is easiest to get away from. However, he'll pop up out of nowhere. And because of that, that's what makes him terrifying. You could be anywhere, you could have ran 5 miles and think you got away and turn around and he's right there. So for that, Jason's getting a 4. For Michael Myers is also getting a 4. Michael is a lot like Jason in that sense, where he kind of pops up. However, I think his is more realistic in certain ways, if that makes sense, and I know neither is really realistic. But I feel like Michael Myers is more of he uses a shortcut to beat you somewhere than just appearing out of thin air. And yes, I do know there's incidences that prove what I just said is totally wrong, but I'm talking about the overall presentation of the three. So Michael, he's getting a 4 too. Now durability. This is how they handle in fights, whether it be, do they get injured? Can you slow them down? Can you stop them? And we all know they just keep coming back. They keep coming back from the dead. All three of these guys have been killed 1,000 times over. We're going to start with Freddy again. Freddy gets a 5. The main reason why Freddy gets a 5 over the other two is his whole power is based off of your psyche. So your ability, his durability is all dependent on the fact that you need to get tired and fall asleep, which everybody does. There's not anybody that could go without sleep. So because of that, he can always come back. Now you can make the same case for Jason and Michael. They both have been killed and come back in the next movie, but they have been able to be stopped, and Freddy has been able to be stopped for periods of time. I just think overall he takes the most damage without it affecting him, because ultimately he's just a figment of your imagination somewhat. For Jason Voorhees, Jason's going to get a 4. Like I said, he keeps getting hit and he keeps coming back, and you kill him and you bury him and then he comes back again. I mean, he's pretty much unstoppable, but you can get away from him. Same thing, going to our last but not least, Michael Myers. He's also getting a 4. His character and Jason's character are very similar in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of subtle differences as well. But as far as durability, they're pretty much even here, just a bit behind Freddy. Now our next category, kill creativity. Over the course of their franchises, who's had the most impressive, most dynamic, most varied versions of kills? Starting off with Freddy Krueger again. Freddy Krueger is going to get a 5. I think a lot of the ways that he's killed people, whether it be drowning people in a waterbed or changing his form in their dreams, have been very creative. Some of them, again, goofy. He has leaned on the slapstick, but he has the more varied attacks out of the three people, and a lot of that is based on the character he is. He's someone that affects you in your dreams, so he can change and he can morph. Where the other two, they're kind of limited to what they could get their hands on, or if they could get their hands on you. Next up, Jason Voorhees. Jason, I'm going to give him a 4 as well, although most of his kills are either with a machete, or picking someone up in a bag and smashing them against a tree, or doing the same thing in Jason X in space, which I think Jason X gets a lot of hate that it doesn't deserve. I think it's a better movie than most people give it credit for. I do agree that the graphics are what holds us back in the obviously insane concept, but I don't think it's that terrible of a movie, so don't hurt me. That's just how I feel. So again, I'm giving Jason a 4. Michael Myers is also getting a 4. Much like Jason, he's pretty much hampered to what weapons he gets his hands on, or just his physical prowess. But he does have some interesting ways and different ways of killing people. That's why he's so high. But again, Freddy is just a bit better than the other two. Now next up, their backstory. Now, I'm not going to get into the backstory of any of these three guys here. First off, because I don't want to give out any spoilers to anyone who may have not seen any of these 40-year-old plus franchises. But also, it would probably kill any chance I have of getting monetized here. So with that being said, if you know their stories, you know. If you don't, look them up. We're going to give Freddy a 5. Freddy's backstory is insane. It's really bad in a lot of ways, but it makes you understand the character and why he is who he is. For Jason, we're going to give him a 4. Again, it's a backstory that a lot of people can relate to, can understand. You can understand why he became who he became. For Michael Myers, he's getting a 4 as well. Again, you understand his backstory. Now, with Michael Myers, out of the 3, his backstory has been retconned in remakes, especially the Rob Zombie remake, so it's kind of hard to go back and look at that and give an objective one version It's kind of like looking at the Batman backstory, which has been retconned and changed 1,000 times in comic books. Michael Myers is kind of similar to that. But I'll give him Michael a 4. Even with that, I think it is really good. Now, next up, this is the one category that carried over from the wrestling ones. That's presentation. Their look, their style, everything about them, their music, their theme. First off, Freddy Krueger. Freddy's getting a 5. The clawed glove, the sweater, the brown fedora, the burnt skin. It is easily recognizable anytime you see Freddy Krueger anywhere, whether it be a picture, whether it be in a movie. You know exactly who that is. Jason Voorhees, same thing. His mask is probably the best part of his presentation, but if you add into that the sound effects that come with every kill that he makes, or every time that he's near, it gives a forbidding tone to it. So I think he definitely gets a 5 as well. Michael Myers, again, he gets a 5 again. And it's funny that it's so simple that the mask was just actually a William Shatner Star Trek mask that's gone on to be iconic in its own right for something totally different. He's another one, as soon as you see his mask, you know exactly who you're looking at. 5 all the way across the board. For our next category, we're going to talk about their impact in pop culture. For Freddy Krueger, I'm giving Freddy a 4. I do think he's lost some steam over the past few years, especially after the remake didn't do so well, and they're kind of faded him into the background. And part of that reason is Freddy Krueger is so tied to Robert Englund that seeing somebody else play the character is kind of jarring. Whereas the other two guys, pretty much you put any huge man behind the mask and they can play the character. So his impact over the last, I'd say 15 years or so, has went down a bit, while the other two I think have stayed popular, mostly through movies that keep being made or through video games or other such content. But Freddy took a little bit of a hit here. Like I said, he gets a 4. Jason's gonna get a 5. Again, you'd be hard pressed to find someone that doesn't know who Jason Voorhees is, even if they've never seen a movie. Michael Myers is also getting a 5. He's been all over the place, especially with the new trilogy of Halloween films being so good and bringing him right back into the forefront. I think he's another one that he's easily recognizable. Anywhere you go, everywhere you look, you'll see him in every Halloween store in the world. Now, next up, our last category, franchise quality. How the total of all the movies these guys appeared in has fared over the years. For Freddy Krueger, Freddy's getting a 3. While Freddy's best movies are some of the best out of all of these, he does have some real stinkers. Like I mentioned before, the remake was pretty bad. Basically, anything after the third movie, the quality is pretty rough. So because of that, that brings the whole quality of the franchise down a bit. Like I said, he's getting a 3. For Jason, similar story. Jason's also going to get a 3. There are some bad movies in there, and Jason X, which I talked about earlier, actually liking and thinking more highly than most people, is very derived. Probably out of all the movies, between the 3 characters, it's probably the one that gets the least love out of all of them. But to me, he has other ones that are bad, like Jason Takes Manhattan is pretty bad. Although there are some good parts in that. Again, he's getting a 3. For Michael Myers is the standout of this category. He's getting a 4. There are some not so great Halloween movies, but overall, I think the quality, and especially these last 3, has been pretty high. The Rob Zombie remakes are pretty hit and miss. The last 3 that just recently came out, I think, are really good. The first couple are really good. Season of the Witch, I can't really blame him on, but I did think it was a good movie. I think if it would have been named anything else, people would look at that more fondly than they did, because obviously, when you think Halloween, you think Michael Myers. But overall, he's getting a 4 for his franchise. There's not as many stinkers in the Halloween franchise as the other 2. Now, their overall score before the bonus, Freddy Krueger is getting a 34, Jason Voorhees is getting a 33, and Michael Myers is getting a 35. Now, with that, if you paid attention to my community page on YouTube here, we do put a poll out every Wednesday, basically that's going to be used for our next video, and the winner of that poll gets a bonus 5 points. So with that, with over 500 votes, the winner of the poll and getting the bonus 5 points, Freddy Krueger, which brings Freddy's total to 39, making him the winner. This is the first time since I've done these that the bonus points has actually changed the outcome of the ratings. And the reason why there's so much weight on that is I think it's good to have other people's opinion included. So with that, our winner, our best of the 3 slasher icons, Freddy Krueger. If you think one of the other 2 should have won, let me know in the comments. If you agree with Freddy, also let me know. And for me, my personal favorite, I'm not going to tell you, but since this is technically my Halloween video, my personal favorite of the 3, Jason Voorhees. Shout out to my cousins Sammy and John for giving me this mask. They had 4 of them that they had for decorations for a party for their son Eden earlier this year, and I asked if I could have one, which is the one I have on my face right now. It's more decorative than it is something I would wear, but I really enjoy it. I think it's super cool. I'm a big fan of Jason out of the 3. I like all 3, but Jason is my favorite of the 3. With that being said, this is normally where I give a spoiler for my next one. I haven't decided what that's going to be, so stay tuned to the community page. And on Wednesday, you'll see the poll going up. You can vote in that poll as you see here. The poll for this week changed the outcome, so you may be able to change the outcome of my next video. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been Who is Better?